Really interesting for me to come out and tell you about a little bit of what we've been doing in Suffolk County this year, and specifically things that maybe have been helpful to the residents here in the village. I've had chats in other parts of Patchogue and up in Medford already, and also to answer any questions you might have. Joining me tonight is Mayor Patchogue Area and Councilman Tim Mazie. So what I did try to do is I invited my colleagues in government to be here in case there's any questions that I can't field. Maybe they might have the answers. That way we could walk away with the answers to our questions if at all possible. So a few things about what Suffolk County's been working on. As you all have probably read in the papers many times, the county's got a tough budget, and we certainly have. We've had to do a lot of tough decision making over the last year to try to get our budget into a place that we can afford, quite honestly. And it's really no fault of anybody else's. It's a matter of the economy, just like everybody else has been hit by the economy. Recessions come and our sales tax numbers go down, which is the bulk of our budget, and our budget problems get a little tougher. But we've done the best we can. One of the things that I talked about during my campaign as a way of dealing with our budget problems, come on in. This is the community chat. Come on in and join us. So one of the things that I talked about, a way of helping the county get out of the budget problem that we had, was finding new revenue sources. And one of the keys to that, and that I talked about, was the Traffic Violations Bureau. Now you would wonder why we want to have our own Traffic Violations Bureau here in Suffolk County, but the reality is, previously, because we're up and running now, whenever a police officer wrote a ticket, that money would go to New York State, because the tickets were prosecuted by New York State at the state DMV. Unless it was issued here in the village of Patchogue, because then the village of Patchogue did it. And as a result, they took all the ticket money. And Suffolk really didn't get much revenue from all the tickets that our police officers were issuing. So we changed that. We were able to get the state to give us permission to start our own TVB. It actually went live in this past April, started up and running. Our goal is to have it act as an agency that's serving clients. So it's intended to be fast and easy and help people navigate the process as painlessly as possible. Obviously, you've got a ticket, so it's not going to be completely painless. But and at the same time, to keep that revenue in Suffolk County, and that's going to help us deal with our budget by giving us new revenue sources that isn't an extra burden on our taxpayers. We also just completed our capital budget process for next year for 2014. We came in with a budget that is lower than our current 2013 capital budget, and we did so putting priorities on the important places we need to invest money, not just on infrastructure and where we can create some jobs, but also improvements at our community college, specifically a STEM facility, a STEM building, which is going to focus on giving job training to people in the science and technology fields. There's a lot of high-tech jobs that are out there, and not so high-tech jobs. Some of them are rather old school. There's just, people who can work with metal, ladders, and welders, and those kind of things. And we're losing companies out of Suffolk County right now because we don't have the workforce, and other areas are attracting them away. In fact, Helix, which was a ladder company, left last year to go to Georgia because Georgia offered to train all the welders they needed for free. So that's something that we're making investments into in our community college, so we can continue to educate people on the jobs training that will get them in those good paying jobs so that they can stay here in Suffolk County, and also so the businesses will stay here in Suffolk County to create those jobs. So that was really the focus of our capital budget, was actually economic development. We put money into downtown revitalization programs, something that Patchogue Village has really benefited from. The walkway just outside of the library here was done with a downtown grant. The walkway being done across the street next to the theater was a downtown revitalization grant. So we were able to put some money back into that and some money into workforce housing programs, which is going to help continue creating housing that's much needed for people, similar to some of the projects we've done here in Patchogue Village. We've got a lot of exciting ones going on, but not near us, so we don't need to talk too much about them. Some of the other things I've done specifically right here in the village, which is my hometown, is obviously the Carnegie Library was one of the big ones that we worked on. We talked about trying to find a way of saving the library 2 years ago, and we've been able to get it done. If you ever drive by the corner of West and Main Street, you will see the foundations going in and it's coming up. We were able to work out a situation where the county is going to give the land to the village and ultimately to the library here for placement of the building, and that's at no cost from the county to the village. Now, I know that the developer put up quite a few dollars in order to move it. He's on the hook for a few bucks for some of the foundation work. The village is chipping in with the rest, and the library is going to manage the renovation of the building to get it up and running. I believe they're going to use it for their young adult section. So that's really a nice thing to see the library not only preserved, but to stay a library again. That's a great thing. Some of the other things we've done right here in the village, if you've seen the new outside space for the tap room next to the courthouse, that's another place where we were able to work with some of our local businesses. They approached the county and said, we really would like some outdoor area, some outdoor dining space for our clients. Can you help us out with this? We were able to work with them and do a lease arrangement with them so that they can utilize a little piece of the property there to get some outdoor seating to help their business. It's actually bringing a few dollars into the county. We're getting revenue from the lease, which we went out and did an appraisal on to make sure we got a fair value. In fact, we're getting double the appraised value, so we're getting our money back on it for what it's worth, and it's allowing our local businesses to grow a little bit where they might not have had the room otherwise to do so. So we're really trying to, part of this is making sure our economy keeps chugging along and keeps doing well. I also was able to get quite a few grants for different entities here in Patchogue Village over the last year. Most of those grants came from the Hotel Motel Fund. The Hotel Motel Fund is a tax line actually specifically on hotel rooms that New York State allows us to impose. And we're actually one of the lowest tax rates on hotel motels throughout the state of New York at only 3%. And a portion of that money goes towards historic preservation and historic renovation projects. A portion goes to tourism projects and those kind of things. So we were able to give a grant to the Patchogue Theater, a couple grants for the Arts Council, for our Plaza Mac, for the Cinema Plaza Mac organization, and also a grant this year for the Historical Society. And all those monies are being put to a very good use by each of those entities. And if you see the things they do, some of the walking tours that the Arts Council has been done partly with those donations from the county, that money from the county. The theater is obviously doing great right now, and that little bit of offset of money helps them out with that. And the Historical Society, actually, I saw Steve from the Historical Society here earlier. They're going to be doing a really cool project, putting in kiosks around some of our historic sites and landmarks throughout the village, so you can see a little bit of what the history was. They have a really cool projects planned in place for that money. And that's all going to help bring people into the village, bring people in to shop, to dine, hopefully to even want to live here, which is part of what we've seen. If you've seen a lot of the revitalization here in Patchogue Village, and a lot of it, you give credit to the mayor, has been able to get done, and it's attracting people in, and it's not just attracting people in, I tell people this all the time, not just into the apartments and the condos and the townhouses and the other places, but into the village to buy homes. Like my wife and I, we bought here in Patchogue Village because of all the stuff happening in the village, because it's a great place to live, and we think a great place to raise our family. So those are some of the things we've been working on. A little bit just outside of Patchogue, actually right around the corner, we were able to get the fence taken down off of Patchogue Lake and open up the lake to people so they can access it. You're going to be able to do some fishing pretty soon. We're going to be working, there's plans to actually put in a couple of fishing docks possibly there as well, so that area is actually accessible, similar to what you see over at Westlake, over off of Main Street. If you go down the road a little bit, you see how you can actually get to the lake. You see people fishing there all the time. You're going to get a little bit of that on Patchogue Lake at the south end off of Lake Street there. And just a little bit outside of the village, I wanted to mention as well, the Suffolk County Health Center down on East Main Street. We are working on moving that off of Main Street into another location to help actually continue what we've done here in Patchogue Village, outside of the village boundaries, down to East Main Street. The town put in a sewer line recently, which is going to connect to the sewage plant here, and it's going to allow for that revitalization to continue its way down the road. But one of the things really blocking that is the health center. We were able to direct some grant money recently to Brookhaven Hospital that's going to allow them to start the planning process to move that health center off of Main Street, stay operated for Suffolk County currently, and put it up by the hospital. It actually will work better for the hospital. It'll create some synergies there where if there's people showing up at the hospital in the emergency room that really don't need emergency care, they could direct them over to the county health center where they can get affordable health care and see a doctor and get treated, and vice versa. If somebody presents at the health center that really may not need, that needs emergency care, they could quickly get them over to the hospital. So it actually creates some synergies. It's going to save us some money in operating expenses, and it's going to allow East Main Street to be properly developed into a nice downtown area where you have the continuation and the shopping and everything else that we have here in town. So those are some of the bigger things I've been working on. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I don't know if either the councilman or the mayor would like to add any words or not.
I just think that, in terms of what Rob has done and how we get things done, it happens because we all talk and we all work together and respect what each other does. And Rob, when you take a look at that library, he was able to pull that off. Maybe 3 months it took him. I think, what, 2 sessions with the ledge?
It was a bit of a record time for county,
really,
for county operations, to be quite honest.
Because I was working with the library on the reuse of it. We just couldn't figure out where to put it. And Rob called up one day and said, I think I got an idea. He says, why don't you come over? We took a look at it. And I still look at the library and I look at the space. I don't know how it fits, but it's going to fit.
It's better.
But it truly is because of his hard work that it's going where it's going, and what's going to happen with it happens. And it's the same thing with East Patchogue. Without Councilman Mason, we run the sewer line down there, and that will change. That is the eastern entrance into this village, and we're all in the same zip code, 11772. And it's just not the village of Patchogue and East Patchogue or Patchogue. It's Patchogue. It's 11772. So that doesn't happen without Councilman Mason's push. So it really is all just kind of figuring out a way to get things done together.
Great, thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to mention to everyone else, we have somebody here from Project Hope. His name's Josh, and maybe I'll let him come up in a few minutes after I take some questions. Josh, Project Hope is an organization that provides counseling and assistance for people who have been victims of Hurricane Sandy. So if you have suffered damage and you're looking for somebody to talk to, Josh and his organization might be able to help. So maybe after we take a few questions, Josh, you come up and say a couple words.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so questions. Ben.
I appreciate your efforts and the mayor's efforts and Councilman Macy's efforts. And this question really is for all 3 of you because you represent different levels of government. I'm sure you're familiar with the Interfaith Nutrition Network. Mm-hmm. No money at this time is being put into that network from the federal, the state, the county, the town, or village coffers. And yet, I know from personal experience, and the mayor also served, and I don't want to leave Councilman Macy out because I don't know whether or not you did as well, but I know the mayor served at our soup kitchen, and you know full well that those numbers are increasing.
Yes, they are.
And we are hard pressed to provide the meals and the food for the pantry that are required each week. Is there any chance at any level of government that some funds can be restored with a view, as the economy improves, hopefully our numbers will go down, but as the economy improves, for government to be doing a little more in the way of subsidizing this? Because frankly, one of the big churches that is instrumental in providing food pantry and soup kitchen services is thinking of getting out of the nutrition network because we have fundraisers and a lot of them, and our money goes in and they distribute it, and it doesn't come back to us because we're known for fundraising. It goes to the people who are having soup kitchens and food pantries who don't do any fundraising. So all our hard work goes to them and we get nothing back.
Yeah.
So what are the chances?
The county, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, our budget's been tight. So a lot of times, now, I'm asking, is that just in our area?
I can only speak for what's happening at the
For the one in
congregational
our
church.
organization, okay. So the county, a lot of times in the past, had funds available to the legislators' discretion. We had, we called it omnibus funding, and also our CSIs, our community support initiatives, which was money that we were able to help direct to important causes within our districts, to help them out. Because the budget has been so tight, and we've been at a situation, in fact, when I first came on, we were at a situation where we had to let employees go. We didn't feel it appropriate to leave that kind of discretionary money out there anymore. Every penny adds up after a while, so we haven't had those kind of programs in a few years because of where our budget problems have been. It's not to say that we haven't made commitments to various soup pantries and those kind of things, food pantries. In fact, we actually make a very sizable contribution every year to both Island Harvest and what's the other one? The other
Long Island
large-
Cares.
Long Island Cares, yeah, they both get a pretty sizable grant from us, both directly from the county, so county funding, as well as money that we're able to funnel through the federal government. And Long Island Cares, I know, makes their food available to the pantries and to the soup kitchens to give out. And while I know that they usually give a certain weight to each pantry that would like it, I've met with them actually a year ago, and they have made it very clear that if there's anybody out there who is finding an extra need than what they're getting currently, they will make sure to get extra shipments to them. They don't have any shortage of food coming in. So they will make sure that they can make that available. And perhaps what I can do is set something up, and if the Interfaith Network isn't aware of how to get in touch with them, I will set them up. I'll get in touch with Paul Packler, who's the director over there. We'll sit down and we'll figure out either how to get an increased amount of food coming in, or an extra shipment, or whatever it may be that we need to do to help. In fact, I know that Long Island Cares was actually interested in trying to set up some satellite stations as well. So maybe it's something that we can sit down and talk to them about, maybe having them do that through the network there. And they get a very large amount of money as well from the federal government to run their programs. So like I said, he's told me they don't have a shortage of food there. So if there's shortages of food in the food pantries,
Yeah.
we need to get the two talking, because they'll make sure you get what you need.
Okay, because our numbers are increasing.
Yes, unfortunately.
78 people every week.
A bad economy has shown its real effects and how quickly it can affect somebody who's one day living very comfortably. They had a job. All it takes is one person to lose a job, one person to get sick, and next thing you know, you're in need. Where the week earlier you may have been somebody who's giving.
In the past 2 years, it has skewed from people who are homeless or very marginal to working families.
Yep.
And with kids. So we're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, it's partly our economy has not recovered to the point of giving us the good paying jobs still. So people are getting back to work, but they're not making the salaries they once made.
Okay, thank you.
But we'll work on that, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, Joe?
Yes, I just want to comment. I work at the food pantry at St. Francis twice a month. Our numbers have increased, but I must say this past year, we've had no shortage of food. Long
Good.
Island Cares has really kept us very well supplied.
Good. So what we'll do, and I'll get in touch with, we'll give you a call, if you're the person to coordinate with.
No, but I'll get you the name of the
Okay,
person.
or I'll call Reverend Walter and we'll work on it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, other questions? John?
I also have a tripartite question. I'm glad that the three levels of government are here, and it's not an easy question to answer, I believe. And that has to do with our climate and how it's affecting our village and this whole area. As all of us know, our climate is changing. We're more and more at risk of storms. I have to say, however, I don't see much evidence that we are preparing for disaster. For example, aggressive tree trimming in the village, I see no evidence of that. If the electric power is out, I don't know how many gas stations are mandatory or have been mandated to make sure they have generators. Perhaps they have. I'm going to hear from you soon.
Yeah.
lower part of Patchogue Village, where flooding is much more susceptible, I don't know if we've yet created a plan for dealing with a severe problem. What that plan might be, I don't know, seawalls, vegetation, drainage, any number of things that might be necessary. I know we have money set aside to repair Mascot Dock, and maybe that's part of the solution. The mayor could comment upon that later on. These issues and related ones bother me because, and probably bother other people here too, because we are so very vulnerable nowadays in a storm, especially when the power goes out.
Sure.
And yet there seems to be some very common sense, pragmatic solutions, like making sure trees don't fall into wires, that I don't really see that we're doing. And it looks like we haven't learned anything from either Irene or Sandy. Again, though, maybe I'm wrong, perhaps we have. But that's the question I ask. What are we all doing at the 3 levels of government to prevent a disaster from happening?
Okay, well, that's a pretty in-depth question, but, so here I'll tell you what the county's doing and a little bit of what the state's doing as well. First, one of the things I actually just passed was a resolution creating a South Shore Coastal Protection Task Force. And it's actually to look at a lot of those different issues and to look at what we need to do to protect the mainland of Long Island on the South Shore. And actually, I was looking at doing this before Sandy hit, partly from what happened with Irene, partly just due to the fact that we have been experiencing more and more flooding problems around the South Shore, both coastal flooding and groundwater flooding problems. So the task force is made up of a bunch of different agencies that all have a scientific or engineering background to take a look at. A lot of this information is actually out there. We've done tons and tons of studies about different things. We have the Fire Island to Montauk Point reformulation plan that was done by the Army Corps of Engineers. You have, there's been a couple of breach contingency plans developed by the federal government. There's been, the county has done groundwater studies and coastal studies. We've done studies, and this is not just protecting our man-made structures, but also looking at protecting the environment as well. And we've done studies on algal tides, the brown tide, and those kind of things. So we've done a lot of this work. So my task force is the Army Corps of Engineers, the Fire Island National Seashore, the county's Department of Public Works, our Department of Health. I have 2 members on the task force that are people who have in-depth municipal experience. One of them is recently retired Jeff Kasner, who worked for the town of Brookhaven for 30 plus years in their environmental protection department. The other is from the town of Babylon, Gil Hans, who spent over 40 years in their hazard mitigation and department. So they've, am I missing any other agencies? USGS.
Nature Conservancy.
And the Nature Conservancy. So they're tasked with, over the next 6 months, going through all the different studies and reports that have been done. There's state studies. The state did a seawater rise study just 2 years ago, looking at all the data that's out there and compiling it and giving us some concrete things to do that are very real, actionable items that we can do immediately. The state, through a lot of the Sandy money that's going to be coming in, is going to be doing some of the other stuff. There's been a lot of houses raised in the village recently, not just in the village, that's happening up and down the South Shore of Long Island, and a lot of that money is going to come either from FEMA or some of this aid money that's going to come in from Sandy to help people raise their homes and get them out of the floodplain, at least so their home itself is not in the flood zone, and maybe filling in the basement's all they need to do. Maybe it is raising the house, those types of things. I know that, what else have we been doing here? I know that the mayor, and I won't speak for him, he's got a plan for doing some work over on River Avenue to deal with some of the people who have homes down at the very end on the bay down there. So there's been a lot of different things culminating, and as more of this money comes out through FEMA and for the Sandy aid, we're going to see more projects taking place. When you talk about the power lines and the tree trimming, a lot of that falls to LIPA, and there has been no doubt that LIPA has fallen down on the job. I recently had the opportunity of meeting with the representatives from PSE&G. That's the company that's going to be taking over for National Grid at the beginning of next year. And they said without a doubt that tree trimming was one of the biggest problems that we have here on the island as a whole, not just on the South Shore, but throughout the island. and that LIPA never really made the investment into it that they needed to make in order to harden the system, so to speak, so that you don't have problems with tree branches that shouldn't be coming down on the power lines, taking power lines out. So they are looking at making a pretty big investment into whatever they can to harden the structure most immediately, and tree trimmings being one of them. So once National Grid is no longer in, PSE&G will come in. These are the things they relate to me. We'll see how they perform and judge them by their actions. But those are some of the stuff we've been working on in the county. All the state money is actually going to funnel in, especially for homeowners. They're going to go through not-for-profit organizations to do the processing of the paperwork to get people back into those programs. I don't think here in Patchogue we're going to see any people getting bought out. That is a program that the state is looking to do. They don't want to just buy out one house on a block. They want to buy out a block. So I'm not sure if that's going to be something that helps us here in the village, any of the properties within the village. It may help some other neighborhoods, but you know, they don't want to have a street where 5 houses got flooded out and 3 of the people want to raise their house. One guy's going to bail, and the next guy is just going to rebuild because he, you know, doesn't have to worry about flood insurance. You know, so that's kind of how it's going to work. So if they can convince a whole street, preferably the ones closer to the waters first, to all sell out, then they might want to do that. But Mayor, you want to add anything, or Tim, about you guys?
Yeah, what we've done is, you know, we have the backhoe truck. All of our stormwater drains, they'll all be cleaned by, well, they do on a cycle basis. It's a piece of equipment we've gotten through a grant from the state that we share with Belport. And so we went over to Belport to do the same thing with Belport with that piece of equipment, which is huge, because those stormwater drains, once that water comes up, the quicker it leaves. As far as the trees go, unfortunately, it is, our guys don't get up into the electrical power lines to take branches down. We don't have the skill to do it, we don't have the equipment to do it, to get up that high and do it, and I wouldn't put the guys in danger doing that. You mentioned down the end of River Avenue. We're running sewer lines down there, we do some road raising. And the end of River Avenue is just a disaster, and too upset to, you know, Joe Dean and Joe Keys went down and knocked on the door, and he said that at high tide, she doesn't let a kid play out in the yard, because at high tide, the septic comes up through the ground, just percolates through the ground. So we'll be getting sewer lines down there. When we do the road raising, hopefully that'll mitigate some of the flooding that they get. But when your house is probably a foot and a half below sea level, and the tide comes up, it's a problem that you have. So the things that we're doing, the things that we have control over, it is we're not doing anything on the Mascot Dock until the fall, until we get through this hurricane season, see what happens, find out how much money we're gonna get from FEMA before we spend any money on it. The work's now because we fish, people can walk, people have to feed. But it really is, and I think, you know, you're correct, Mr. Jack, it is, it's a huge, huge issue. And it's not only the preparation of how we prepare, whether it's the stormwater, the trees and so forth, is how we prepare ourselves equipment-wise, personnel-wise, to handle it and work with the fire department in the town. You know, the last couple of storms, we really kind of work together, did a lot of work together, so.
Yeah, and to the sewer project the mayor was talking about, there's you have a state or federal grant that you're gonna apply, you have to put towards that, correct?
What's that? For
You
that?
had a federal grant, or is it a state grant?
The
that
state
you're-
grant.
And then they're trying to leverage some of the county's sewer money to help offset some of those costs as well.
There's $1 million through the DASNY, the Regulatory Authority that's coming. All of these developments that we put up around, the ones that are out of the sewer district, such as Bay Village, Copper Beach, River Avenue, up on Waverly Avenue, they pay what's called key money. Key money is $25 a gallon, and the average unit is 300 gallons, so $30 a gallon, so it's about $9,000 a unit we get to the village that goes into a separate sewer fund. We have just about $2 million in that fund right now, so we're gonna take $875,000 of it towards that project with $1 million, and then if Rob can pull a rabbit out of the hat with a $500,000, and that $500,000 will not cost the resident taxpayer a dime.
You're gonna start in the south end of the village first, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. So, and I've mentioned to Paul, as we see the federal money coming in more, and there's a lot of it going to be coming in to the areas, and it's all going to be competitive, but if I can help steer any of that money to the village to help some homeowners connect who are in the south end of the village, who do have the water problems, because it's not just down on Sunset and at the end of the river, it's people who live down on Smith and in that neighborhood down there. I know all the way up to Brook Street, in that neighborhood, they're all, have
Well, that was
major
my
problems.
question. I mean, is that something that might be in the works for the
That's-
future? Because I hear you talking about River Avenue and River Avenue, and I get that. But
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
also one of those people in between Ryder and Bay Avenue on the water.
Well,
And you talk about the bubbling of the sewage, like,
Where do you live?
14 DeWitt. And, so,
We get into sewer.
and I don't mean to interrupt, but I have a lot to say right now, and I'm tired of hearing
Yeah.
everybody else jumping in. Getting back to the monies that you're talking about funneling in from FEMA and from the state and all that.
Sure.
I don't know if everybody saw the other night on Channel 12 News, you got the gentleman from Long Beach standing up there going, you know, because I was approved for SBA loan, now New York State won't give me any grants and blah, blah, blah. And you got News 12 standing up there, oh my God, was there some political fumble going on, blah, blah, blah. And I was so appalled at seeing this gentleman staring into the camera going, now New York State won't give me money for my house. Like, there's this sense of entitlement. I've gone through this process. Tears, mental. I mean, the process is grueling. You got this gentleman on the TV who doesn't want to go through the process and he wants everything to be easy. Well, guess what? This process is not easy. You have things, there's criteria in order to get monies. And you gotta put in for FEMA. And if you have flood insurance, you go through the flood insurance. If you don't have enough flood insurance, and then you go to the SBA. It took me 7 months to go through the SBA process. Did I finally just get some money? Yes. And it was grueling, it was tough. I'm living in 3 different houses in 2 different states. I just got an apartment in Patchogue. Thank God, there was a nice person who was willing to rent for me and my dog. And I guess I'm just so appalled that all these people have this sense of entitlement that, oh my God, I'm a homeowner and my house is falling apart, give me money to fix it, buy it, blah, blah, blah. No, what happened to everybody taking responsibility for the house you own, go through the process like everybody else? So when you're talking about, okay, here this money's gonna come in from FEMA and grants from New York State, when you're talking about giving this to possible homeowners to help build the house, there's already a process for raising houses through FEMA. It's called an ICC plan.
And you gotta follow the processes, right? So the state,
Yes.
the federal money that's gonna be coming in, as it is, if you just well detailed, it's very slow and painful to get this money
That's
coming out.
because I had an idiot for a caseworker and I'm on my 4th one now, so,
Okay.
you know.
Well, if you need help, I know the village has got some people who are helping out, you can contact my office, I have a contact person at FEMA that I can try going through, and we can try to help out how we can.
But I have
You will
a
still need
question.
to follow the process.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
And those monies that are coming in, you know, the federal government took a very long time to approve the 66 million, I think they're giving in Sandy aid through the tri-state area. We're only just starting to see some of those dollars actually come in. While they approved up to 66 million, they didn't actually appropriate that much. The first batch that's coming in to us for the programs, I think it's about 250 million that's going to be coming in through the Suffolk and Nassau region for homes. So for homeowners, there's another pot that's going to come in to help businesses recover. But you're still going to have to go through all the same process. I mean, it's not, nobody's going to get to come in at the last minute and say, and skip it all. If you didn't first file your claim with the
Because
insurance
I would
company.
actually be
hurt. You've got.
sit there going through this, because I'll have to be honest with you, the end result of all this process, I
Yeah.
get it. My house needs to be raised, it's the right thing to do,
Yep.
and I'm doing it.
you-
But I'll be honest with you, by the time I'm not gonna be able to pay my mortgage for July.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my house raised, it's gonna look beautiful when it's done. I'm not gonna be able to afford to stay. So I am doing this for the next person who is going to own my home. So I'd hate to see that Joe Schmo down the block, didn't go through that process, and he's getting money for nothing,
The process is.
and he's not using a dime and losing nothing.
The process is.
So
still
that's
the
what
same.
my concern
You've
is.
gotta go through your insurance, then you're gonna go through.
I wish
FEMA.
News 12 was here, so they go tell Mr. Lynch in Long Beach to get online and do what he's
Yeah,
supposed to
you
do.
gotta go through all the different processes, you gotta have the village come in and certify that your home was more than 50% damaged by the
Absolutely.
storm. You have to follow all the steps, nobody's gonna be able to come in at the last minute
Okay.
and step in and say, oh, great, thanks for the pot of money, without having to go through, exhausted all the steps that need to be exhausted, and it is exhausting.
It is.
And,
And there's so many people
it
out there
is
saying,
very
well, I didn't
difficult.
know and I didn't know. You did know and you went for it, you got it, but you want free money. No, it's not the way life works.
No, unfortunately, it
Okay.
isn't. We're trying to help everybody we can, but you have to go through some of the processes, and they're not always easy to do.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Else?
Yeah, well, I have a question, and it may not affect I'm not sure whether it's county or town. When they reconstructed Waverly Avenue after the circle's fine. But why did they switch the 2 lanes southbound and now it's a racetrack? People go 50 to 55 miles an hour down there.
Yeah.
And if you try to go 30, which was crazy to lower it that low, they fly around you. And before, when there was only 2 lanes, there was a wide enough lane on the side for bicycles and even somebody to stop and drop somebody off and pick somebody up.
Yep.
Now you can't, you're gonna get killed. And then when you get up by Road Boulevard, they used to widen out the 2 lanes so that you didn't have that long string of traffic all the way down to the light to go through the light going north.
So that,
They really need to reconfigure that back to how it was.
yeah, that project was designed well before I was in office.
I know,
think they got it built before I got in office.
I'm
but
not
I am familiar with it. I was here, maybe not in office, but I was here. And actually was designed prior to that person as well. When they did the road counts on the roadway, and the reason they changed it, when you used to get up to the highway, you got it widened to 2 lanes, and it was 1 lane on the other way, was they found there was far more people coming in southbound than there were people going northbound by the traffic counts they had. Now,
But since you're still
that was
going to
many-
1 lane
that
by
was
the
many,
circle.
Many moons ago, and I hear what you're saying. We can certainly bring it back off to DPW and talk to them about it. We're not going to obviously redo a road, but perhaps there can be restriping that's done to address it. But I do hear you, and that's why they changed it. Trust me, I've experienced it, going trying to get out of
They
it.
could write
Sometimes
wholesale
you're backed
tickets
up to the
down there for
traffic circle.
speeding.
Yeah,
Without
well,
any trouble at all.
I ask PD to go down there and enforce quite often, especially since there are precincts right there. It's not too heavy of a lift. But you have bus stops on Waverly Avenue. So it is very problematic sometimes because when you get people flying, especially in the morning, trying to get out, and the buses are stopping to pick up children, we need to make sure that people are slowing down and stopping for those buses. And it's a enforcement issue, but I'll certainly ask DPW to take a look at it again and see, maybe we gotta put a counter back out there again and see what's happened. What usually happens, our engineers at DPW like to talk about traffic like water.
Yeah.
It finds the route of least resistance. So what usually happens is if you do something that kind of makes it more difficult to go in one way, people tend to start going another direction. And I think that's partly what you have seen happening on the.
But it worked really well before the circle, And I have one other traffic.
Originally, but
Over at Ryder and Main Street.
yeah,
There's so many new people coming into the village for these restaurants and everything, they're
Mhm.
parking in the lots in the back.
Mhm.
When they get up to Main Street, they don't realize that when the light is green to go north, that they can turn left, they can turn right, they can go straight, and nobody's gonna be coming at them out of the Carvel parking lot.
Yeah.
So they should put an arrow showing that you got left, and they should do the same thing for the people coming out of the lot.
Okay.
Then they should recycle the light. So right now you come north on Ryder.
Yep.
Then you get a red light, then they come out of the parking lot, then you get a green arrow and everybody sits there like nobody knows it. Instead of, let them come out of the Carvel first,
Experience that.
and then let the northbound rider go and turn red and leave the arrow on
Sure.
as long as it's.
Okay.
But they need to put 2 additional arrows in
Eva
there.
Gurgowski's here with me, she's one of my staff members, she's taking notes
I'm
as we
taking
speak.
notes now.
We'll reach out to DPW and ask
I
them.
mean, it would be,
No, it makes sense.
it wouldn't
Listen,
cost much to
I
fix
sat
that.
behind that guy who doesn't realize the lights turn green for the arrow
But,
because he.
because
goes
there's
too
so
far
many
into the
people, new
intersection.
people coming into the village now with,
I think
I
I
know
still
what
do
you're
it.
Right.
and then one last thing.
They switched
When the
the lights.
LIR quote fixed their crossing
Yeah,
at West,
I know, it's not.
it like kills your car now to go across it.
I know.
They've got to redo the,
Oh,
the
the
road.
mayor might got.
Thank you.
We've been in contact with the railroad, they said they're coming back. What amazes me about it more than anything else, the water authority came in, tore the road up, put new pipes in, repaves it. 8 months later, the railroad comes and tears it up, raises the track, so now they have to take the thing, tear up the new paving and.
to smooth it out.
But the real question, Mr. Calarco, if the study says there are more cars coming in than going out, where are the extra
Yeah.
cars staying?
Well,
Village to the Great
so-
South
so
Bay.
they find alternate routes out of the village, so they go out by North Ocean, or
But
they go
watch-
out
watch-
by, in fact, you get, part of it, and I've actually gotten this complaint when the traffic circle went in, a lot of the people who are coming down Waverly don't actually live in the village, they come down and they're going around, they're going over to Blue Point, and that's their way into, to get into the neighborhood. So then when they leave Blue Point, they go out by Nichols or whatever the case may be, so they're actually going, just using that as a cut through to get to their homes,
But-
not actually
But in
in
the
the village.
afternoon, you'll see them backed all the way, almost
Sure.
all the way down to the by Nolan's and all, trying to go north.
Sure, sure. And speaking to, back to the issue you brought up, Mr. Wojciak, I remembered another thing the county's working on, when you mentioned how these utilities couldn't get their act together, all are working at once. We have put together a group of people, to work with the different utilities to try to look at how and when we could bury utility lines. In fact, it was something we were trying to do at East Main Street when we did the East Main Street work. To try to convince the utility companies that when the county has a road opened up to do work, or for that matter, any of the towns are looking to open up a road, to get them to get on board to possibly coming in at that time, burying their utility lines, to take them so they're no longer above ground, so you don't have they have to worry about the trees knocking them out. You have them buried in a safer location, and obviously you're not going to be able to do that everywhere. You're going to have to do it where it makes sense. But that's something that we're working with the utilities on to actually start getting them on board with us and communicating with us. So when we got a major road work going on, instead of telling them, because we do this sometimes, you gotta move your pole 5 or 6 inches one way or the other because we gotta widen our road a little bit, we'll tell them, hey, we'll give you the right of way if you could bury your lines underground as opposed to having them in a pole. That's a better process and actually, dealing with some of the storm damage that we face, especially along the county roadways, which tend to be arterials not only for traffic, but arterials for power. Sir?
How are you?
Good.
I just have a couple things about Long Island itself. I personally think it's dirty. Every traffic light, you look left and right, there's garbage. There's always garbage. An accident, there's a bumper left, there's taillights left behind, and they just stay there till the next winter. And then I'll see that same taillight, Route 112 and Woodside. You can't walk on those sidewalks because it's dirty. There's car parts. So I don't know if the cops, I'm sure they're not grabbing the broom to sweep it up, if it's the tow truck driver's responsibility, stuff like that. I was a city police officer for 20 years. There was always a way, there was always a system. If there was an oil spill, the fire department came, they'd throw something down. Everything was always pretty much clean. Sidewalks were in the village. I took my kids to Hibachi the other day. My daughter thought there was 2 smashed pumpkins in one of the walkways. It was throw up. Now, obviously, yes, someone had a great night the night before. I understand that. Is it the store owner's responsibility to clean up what's next to their building? Or is it the county? Or it was disgusting. So she thought it was 2 pumpkins. That's weird. I was at North Ocean and LIE today. This concept I don't get. Why are they cutting the grass over the garbage? There were more Poland Spring bottles chopped up that'll sit there till the next year. Why isn't garbage picked up before they cut the grass in the town?
Good question.
Long Island's dirty.
That's a good
I love
question.
it, been here all my life. Every traffic lights, cigarette butts, the whole
Yeah,
program.
you know, listen,
It just never,
litter is
cleaned
one of
up.
those problems that are very difficult to deal with because it really comes down to convincing people that not to make, that this is all our home, and then, you know, you wouldn't throw trash
well, that's the first part.
around in your front yard, so why would you throw it around on our street? So,
Unfortunately, there are people who do.
unfortunately, ours.
We have one
That's the
right here in
problem.
the village.
Yeah, this is.
The beer bottles are, I mean, I know that this was
But,
already brought up with
But
the
it's,
restaurants.
but no, you're right, and it's, you know, it's tough, you know, as far as the issue with found on the street, you know, maybe the mayor can talk to who's responsible, usually the property owners are unfortunately responsible for their properties, but.
I mean, there's one guy in the village, he picks up every piece of garbage, I give him credit with the little green vest,
Yeah, well,
he's
he
awesome.
he works for the.
But he's the only,
Well, there's, I think
I-
he may work for the bid, if I'm not
Oh.
Yeah,
mistaken.
he does. with his-
The business improvement district in the village does have an individual who works for them, that he goes out and
And
he
he's
keeps
awesome.
clean the business area clean,
Right.
and he does a very good job at it. You know, and it's tough, it's honestly, it's one of the hardest things that comes across my desk, because it's, okay, I get an issue where there's a garbage to clean up. Certainly, if there's ever a county roadway, you wanna pass along to me where we need to do a cleanup, and maybe we'll do one down on Woodside Avenue. I can reach out to the sheriff's office. He sends out his labor crew, he gets inmates that will go out and do cleanups. We've done them on East Main Street, we've done them up on Horse Block Road. I can do it on on Woodside, you know, all it is treating, you know.
A temporary thing.
It's a temporary thing, we're not really fixing the
but
problem.
the guy that's ready to cut the lawn and puts that blade down and goes, oh boy, there's a half an engine here, but I'm gonna go right over it.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
and then the
we'll
equipment's
have to-
broken, I'm
We'll have
sure.
to reach out to DPW and talk to them about that. And as far as the car part and other things, we'll reach out to the police department, ask them what the policy is.
He's right about that.
Because you're probably
Right.
right, there's probably somebody who's responsible for that cleanup.
I wanna volunteer and throw a cone down, I'll just go out there and clean it, but then I'm
When
gonna
I-
shut lanes down.
We do adopt the highway programs.
Right. I know, that's around 10 grand.
Where people can do it, adopt the highway, and they go out and clean up themselves, or hire a company. A lot of times the way it works is you actually just, you say you adopt the highway, and a lot of businesses will do it. They don't actually do the work, they give the county a few bucks, and we have a contractor who goes out and does the cleanup. We have adopted median programs, in fact, that's how the traffic circle was cleaned up and made lines was the bed. I basically adopted it and said, we'll take care of that. I was able to secure them a few bucks a while back before our monies were taken away, and,
Is there no county ordinance though that if the police call a tow truck to come and pick up, that they
I
have to
don't know,
clean
I'll
the
have to
scene?
look.
Because in Arlington, Virginia, where I grew up, I drove a tow truck and we couldn't leave unless
I might see
we
what's
swept
going on.
up everything.
Yeah, I
It was
honestly
gone.
don't know what the county code is, how it applies with us, but,
Yeah.
I will reach out to PD and find out what the protocol is and follow up on it.
That's it.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious, what are the plans when they move the health center, what are they gonna put there? Do we know?
Well, I don't know. The county doesn't own that property. That property is owned by a gentleman named Robert Frost. He owns quite a few properties in the area. Hopefully, we can see something where that owner may be able to work with the town of Brookhaven, who acquired the Plaza Theater property not too long ago, to find a way of putting a good project there, because the two properties really match each other. The Plaza Theater has a lot of land behind the health center property, so the two work together well for development, but there's no concrete plan out there right now. And in fact, I know the town's still trying to figure out their end of the deal. Did you guys actually clear title on that, as far as
Yeah,
acquisition price?
yes, in fact, Frost is buying the property
Oh, yes,
from the
okay.
town, yeah. That happened recently. He approached the town a couple of years ago, when we initially condemned the property. And what he wanted to do was, well, what he really wanted to do was keep the health center there, obviously, which we've all been against. And initially, what he was offering was, he would purchase the property, the town would allow him to build a building in front of the health center, which is where the health center is now, fronting the street, and then he would donate to the town the footprint where the Plaza Theater used to be, and we'd make a park or something out of that. He's in the process of purchasing the entire property from the town as we speak, and because we finally got the value from the judge in the condemnation proceeding. So we're waiting to find out if he still wants to do that, build that extra building and donate the property. See, basically what he's saying was, if you give me the density to allow me to build another building on the front of the property, I'll donate the footprint of the plaza to the town, and you can do whatever you want with it. Like I said, we were thinking about, passing park there. So that's the latest. I don't know if that's still on the table or not. We're waiting to hear from him. I don't know how the fact that the county's no longer going to rent that building as a health center, how that's going to affect what he's ultimately going to do with the property. We don't know that yet, so we're waiting to hear that.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
Yeah,
can I ask
there's a
something?
couple years out, the county lease on that property is not up until 2015. So we'll be there for, actually, the end of June 2015. So we'll be there for 2 more years in the facility, and that actually will give us the time we need to effectuate a move, because we can't do something like that quickly. Even if there was a spot that was perfect, ready for us to move into soon, that will take us a little time to make that happen. So he's gonna have a couple years to figure out what the county is going to do, and hopefully that gives them enough time to really put together a good plan for the 2 properties together. They really work together. It's the only way to really develop the one site is by having the other. So he's the most logical person to take over the properties, and hopefully he comes back with a good project.
Sorry, again, Swan Lake, is that
Yeah.
down that way?
Yep.
What are they doing with that? I mean, is that technically like a river or something, really? 'Cause it
On the
doesn't-
south side,
Yeah, it doesn't freeze over,
I'll let the
right?
council, well,
What are they doing with that? I know they cleaned up around it.
Are you talking about the old Messenger property?
Well, that's part of my question. Yeah, are they going to, because you spoke about opening up something on Patchogue Lake.
well.
Will they do anything there?
The south end of Swan Lake is parkland now. You have the county, actually the county and the town both own some property there. But the councilman's been working on something with the old Messenger property and we could really,
Yeah.
Kayaks
live
or
on that
boats,
lake.
something?
Well, yeah, we're hoping.
There's a whole neighborhood.
The town purchased the old Messenger site, it's probably 2 years ago now, I'm trying to think, probably about 2 years ago. And we bought it as open space. So what we're allowed to do legally is build parkland, but it has to be a passive park, it can't be an active park. By passive, we can put some benches on there, we can plant grass, we can put some trails. And what the hope is that if we can do it, and to be honest with you, I don't know that we can, but we're certainly gonna clean up, we're definitely gonna clean up that portion of the property that fronts on the river, on the Swan River, as it flows south. On the south side of the property, we're looking into whether we can actually have kayaks go off of the property and go down south of the river. I don't know that that's physically possible yet, but if it is, that's what we'll do. That, we can do that as a passive park. So we're hoping, but we're gonna clean the property up. Senator Zeldin, Lee Zeldin, got us a grant from New York State last year, and we're gonna use that money to clean the property up. There's a pipe that actually goes through the property,
Sweezy Street.
which if you can imagine, it actually takes stormwater runoff and has this pipe go underneath the property into the Swan River. Now, what brain surgeon decided to do that years ago is beyond me, but we're gonna, part of the grant is we cut that pipe off, so the water no longer runs into the Swan River. We're gonna make a little pond on the property pursuant to the grant, and then have some walking trails and other things there. So, with the money that Senator Zeldin got for us, I think it's gonna turn out to be a nice little passive park, and nice looking, and hopefully people will be using it. So we should be starting that probably early fall, something like that. I'm hoping September, in that time frame, we should be getting that project done. So by next year, this time, it should be completed and look really, really nice for the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question. What's going on with the old town hall in South Ocean?
Well,
Is there some,
it's interesting that you say that, because Paul and I were just talking a few moments ago. We thought it's for sale. I'm sorry to say it, it's gonna break my heart when it happens, but it's for sale. As Rob said, the county's in some tough times, the town is in equally tough times. So we're looking to sell property that we own, and unfortunately, that's one of the pieces that we're looking to sell. We thought we had a buyer, we met, Paul and I met with that potential buyer, probably about a year ago, right? Yeah, probably about a year ago, at Village Hall. We thought that this person was really interested, in building some kind of medical office building. As it turns out, they've kind of dropped out, but now we have some other people looking, some other interested buyers, so, that's.
No, the building would be preserved or
Yeah.
be raised or?
No. It would be preserved in a sense that the way the building looks now would
Converted.
continue to be that way. We removed all of the asbestos years ago, several years ago. And it's basically a shell inside. So whoever purchases it is gonna have to spend a lot of money to refurbish the inside. The outside is going to remain basically the way it looks, certainly with the town of Brookhaven etched in the top of the building. That's gonna stay that way.
So we're all on the
Yeah.
spiral staircase, it's gonna stay. The phone booth.
Yeah, the old
Phone booth,
That's
yes.
it.
I'll trade you my house for that building.
You got a dry basement. But
Stop motion.
the town spent close to $1.5 million.
Yeah, about $1.5 million cleaning it up inside.
Yeah, so it's clean from brick to brick on the inside.
So there's no hazmat and anything?
We
No, no.
control the zoning and planning on it. The village does. Any monies that will come from a sale of it would go to the town to lessen the debt
Right.
that they took.
We have some debt service still existing on the building from when we, several years ago, when we bonded the refurbishing from inside, taking the asbestos out, et cetera. So there's one or two people that are interested. We're pursuing that. Certainly nothing is.
Okay, so
is,
no immediate plans for,
Say again?
no immediate plans?
Not as we
Not as-
speak right now, but there's a
Yeah.
couple of potential buyers out there, and we're listening.
And as the economy gets a little bit better too, it appraises at a reasonable number for somebody to pick it up.
Yeah, I figure with all the new developments in the village, that somebody would be interested in. Plus, the village controls the zoning, right? So
Right.
the zoning could be changed in order to,
Well, the evidence right now is that property was given to the town in 1927 when the building was first built. And then in 35, they put the 2 wings on each side. And the covenant in it basically says when it's no longer being used for town government, they reverse back to the village. But because there's the debt that sits on it, and out of fairness, that fund go back and then we'll look at the planning. And it's really an unzoned piece of property. It's municipal property right now, so it doesn't, we could put most anything you want to put there, But, so what we'll do. No CBS. No.
Please.
Don't see it factory. But we'll, no, so we control all the plans that can be done, planning, things like that, and so forth.
thank you.
Councilman Macy, I know that the income side of the town budget took a hit in the faltering economy because of the lowered revenues from mortgage taxes.
Correct.
Now, hopefully as things recover, that side of the income ledger will improve. But
Hoping for that.
it's gonna be a while till it comes back to what it was.
We've
So-
we've
so-
seen a little bit of an uptick, believe it or not, this year thus far. We budgeted conservatively with respect to the mortgage tax. We're expecting to get a little bit more than we budgeted for, which will be good, but certainly nothing like we were taking in back in '07, when we were
Right.
getting upwards of $30 million a year.
Right.
Now, we're lucky to get $10 million a year.
Right. So the second part of my actual question is, other than raising taxes, which nobody in this room wants to hear about,
It's not gonna happen.
what is the town looking to do to kind of recoup the losses from $30 million? That's a big hit.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, as I mentioned a moment ago, we're looking to sell off properties. we've unfortunately, and underline the word unfortunately, we've laid off some people, which nobody wants to do, but we've had to. I suspect that that may have to happen again. We're paring down our workforce. We've offered a lot of incentives to the workforce, which has worked out some time ago. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we saw some layoffs in the supervisor's budget for 2014, unfortunately. So, you know, we're looking to get some additional money at the landfill based upon some of the projects that are out there. We're hoping that we budgeted conservatively and that the mortgage tax will start going up a little bit. I don't think it's ever going to get back to $30 million, but certainly if we can get a little bit more on that. So I think all of these things lumped together, we're hoping, we're committed certainly to not raise taxes this year, so it's basically whatever it's going to take to do that, we're going to do.
Any plans for privatization of town services?
Well, we've done a couple of things. The marinas, we privatized Davis Park Marina, for example, last year. We're looking to privatize Blue Point Marina and Sandspit Marina, and maybe the marina out in the East End. So, you know, we're looking into things like that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I could just say, I happen to also work for the federal government, and I'm taking the furlough day once every 2 weeks. I know you just had mentioned the possibility of having to lay off more employees. I mean, as much as I'm not happy about the furlough days, do you think maybe that might be something you could look into?
That is something that's
for
already been
the
looked
local
into.
employees? I mean, because I am grateful to still have a job, and it's better than going and getting unemployment. And, you know, so just putting that out there.
No, I can tell you that the supervisor has actually brought that up in discussion. We're talking with the unions, about that, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that was something that might very well be done even before the 14 budget.
Yeah, because I'm thinking those people, instead of not having, you know, something better than nothing, and it's certainly more than unemployment.
I agree.
No questions?
Just curious, the courthouse next to the Carnegie Library.
Yep.
What's taking place there? What kind of court?
That's the 6th District Court. Primarily what they do is their busy days are when they deal with landlord-tenant issues. They also deal with code enforcement. The town actually comes and does all code enforcement issues for the town of Brookhaven come through the 6th District Court. So those are the primary 2 things that are done out of that courthouse. I don't think we do any criminal.
Small claims.
It's all
Small claims.
Small claims.
Small claims. So it's all civil actions that go through that court there. Yep. Okay, well, I'll let Josh maybe come up and, did you want to say a couple quick words about what Project Hope does, just in case any people in the room could use it?
Yeah, I can do that from here. Project Hope is a free and confidential crisis counseling program, as was said before, for people that have been impacted by Hurricane Sandy. It's a federal grant program that's channeled through the Office of Mental Health and then locally through the Clubhouse of Suffolk. I'm a team leader within that organization. We've had crisis counselors that have been out on the ground, canvassing the streets, working in public areas, and providing support services for individuals going through this difficult recovery process. I did want to make an announcement that we do have ongoing support groups here at Patchogue Medford Library next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and then the following Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. So individuals that would be interested in having a larger discussion with some of their neighbors and learn some things that they've learned throughout this process, there's an opportunity for that. And also, if you're interested in individual, it's confidential. We don't do any therapy. We're there just to be a support for you and to assist you with any emotional, psychological needs that you may have. You can reach us at 471-7242-1010. I also have some information in the back here for anybody that would like to take a look at. Any questions regarding the program?
from anyone? I appreciate you all coming out tonight and spending a little time and getting to know what the county does. And certainly, if you ever have any kind of questions, I do have a card in the back that just is got some useful phone numbers on there about what Suffolk County, different Suffolk County agencies and entities. In fact, I think we have some of the town of Brookhaven's and the village of Patchogue's numbers on here as well. And there's a little form here, so if you ever want to reach out to me by mail, you can contact me, but my office is right here on Main Street, on the corner of Railroad and Main Street. So if you ever want to just come and stop by, my office is open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I may not be there, maybe at a meeting, but I do have staff that are there during those hours so that they can answer any questions or deal with any problems you might have. And I think actually, what do we get? A little community chat questionnaire. If you have anything specifically from tonight that you want to send to me later on, feel free to fill one of these out. So, thank you very much, everyone.